Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. Welcome to From Lease to Liability, BoardSafe Playbook for preventing water loss. I'm Aaron Norgard, your moderator. Thank you for investing the next hour to make your community safer, more resilient, financially sound. Now, while today is an educational session, that's why you came. Those on the panel, including myself, are professionals in the condominium and the property management industry. So products and services will be mentioned, but our focus is to give you clarity on risk mitigation practically and as a principle, and to give you a mindset that you can take back to your board and your management team. All right, so as you can see on your screen, we're joined by an excellent panel. We have Lindsay McNally. She's a director, Condominium Lending Group. So Lindsay advises condominium corporations on practical board-safe financing options, helping boards to compare loans versus special assessments and to align repayments to the useful life of improvements. Dwayne Pierce, we have joining us from as a general manager from Integrity Risk Reduction in Vancouver, BC. So Dwayne helps multi-unit communities and buildings implement automations and solutions to mitigate water risk, making prevention simple and effective. And we also, you may see on the screen, we have Ader Chen. He's Director of Operations, Leak Shield and Water Shield, based in London, Ontario. So Ader focuses on chronic leak prevention, especially pinhole leaks related to corrosion, implementing mineral solutions into fewer emergency repairs and predictable budgets. And as you may know, I'm Aaron Norgard with Norgard Solutions based in Eastern Ontario. I work with boards and property managers to target predictable water failure points and then design targeted and practical prevention solutions. So we have good crew. We're looking forward to being with you for the next hour or so. And here's what you're going to get today. We're going to answer the question, why most water loss is predictable, why it's not accidental. We're going to look at why boards face financial governance exposure from repeat events, what operational systems actually prevent losses, how to fund prevention without burdening owners, and we'll have a decision model to guide decision makers. So maybe what we can do is let's warm up the chat here. So if you could open the chat box, and we'll see. Has your building had at least one water claim in the past 3 years? So you can type in yes or no or not sure. So has your building had at least one water claim in the past 3 years? You can type yes, no, or not sure. Let's see what we have. Okay.
Aaron, just a quick note that it seems like people are not able to use the chat. We're seeing some stuff come into the Q&A.
Oh, interesting.
So it
Okay.
may be disabled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, I can look into that in the next segment. Oh, I apologize for that, guys. I do see some activity, so that's good. Thanks for participating, everyone. Well, let's get this going then. Maybe we'll start with money and liability side because that's where risk becomes the most impactful. So, Lindsay, maybe we'll head over to you.
Sure. Thanks so much, Aaron. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I've been invited to join this panel to make the money case. Why does it make good financial sense to, really proactively address water leakage concerns in your building? And some of the financial options that a condo corporation might have in the event you're looking at exploring, a good solution for those problems. So, I mean, the first thing that I want to say is that oftentimes when we start to see water leakage in condo buildings, boards and even condo managers can look at them pretty reactively. Here is something that has happened. Let's make the repair, and then we just move on from it, and we treat it more like a maintenance issue. And sometimes they really are just maintenance issues. You may have an isolated incident of water leakage, but we have to be really mindful, especially financially, of patterns and recurring issues. Because when we have a repeated pattern of water loss in a building, financially, it really becomes a capital risk. So, if you're a condo manager or a board of directors, you really need to watch variances to the budget that occur as a result of unanticipated events like leaks in your building. So, what can happen if we're not watching this mindfully is that the budgets can grow over time. And if they don't grow over time and we're not making budgetary adjustments, this can really result in the development of deficits over time. In addition to that, of course, when we do have repeated instances of water losses in our building, this can affect the building's insurability and their cost for insurance, and their deductibles can rise. So these are the things that we really need to be mindful of. And I'll get into a little bit more detail just on the next slide here, Erin, if you could. Great. So, when we do start to see a repeated problem of these types of incidents, the problem or the risk really creates a predictable pattern. And with that predictability drives a need to develop some kind of prevention program. This really is reasonable due diligence that should be done. And we can document the issue and use that information from a financial perspective to help us build our plan. So addressing these risks helps us to minimize operating costs. I alluded to that on the previous slide, and really does benefit our long-term financial health. What we are trying to accomplish with a plan like what the rest of my panel is going to talk about a little bit later on, is we want to try to take control over these expenses. We want to see these issues coming, and we want to proactively address them before they become a financial risk. Because when we fail to address them, this is when we get into patterns of deficits. We create liability for ourselves, such as what if these water leaks are damaging unit owner contents, creating issues with livability within the unit. If we know there's a problem, the condo corporation might have specific liability for those unit owners' ongoing costs. And we want to minimize that as much as possible. Now, when we're looking at implementing solutions, one of the key things we need to think about from a financial perspective is that we need defensible rationale. So, why do we need to take action? What options we considered with respect to the actions we're taking, and how the costs are going to be funded. And our financial statements really help us to paint a picture of what this looks like. Now, in terms of the insurance impacts, there's some obvious ones. Our premiums rise after we have claims, whether that's one or more claims, our premiums rise. The insurance market is cyclical. Right now, it's a pretty soft market, but there are times in very recent history that we do see premiums rising a lot, even when there's no history of claims. And so we want to be mindful of insurance costs, not just today, but what the insurance market might look like tomorrow. So management of your claims, minimizing the number of claims becomes an important long-term goal for a condo corporation. Now, with respect to deductibles, sometimes, oh, Barry, you're getting ahead of me. Sometimes they can escalate really drastically as a result of repeated water losses. And this plays a big financial impact for condo corporations because it's not really a good practice to budget for, multiple deductibles in the course of a fiscal year because you don't really know if you're going to spend that money. You might be collecting that money from the owners for no good reason. But if your deductibles are too high as a result of repeated losses, it is possible that your condo corporation will not have sufficient surplus built up to pay those deductibles as they need to. And this can sort of lead you down the path to unexpected special assessments, which certainly would not be popular within the unit owners of the corporation. Even if you have just one claim, not repeated claims, it can create these issues. So we have to watch what's happening, our claims history, when it comes close to renewal time to help us with conversations with our brokers. So just to summarize, multiple events can narrow the insurance appetite for our insurers, trigger increased deductibles, but also conditions, exclusions, or coverage restrictions. So we want to prevent that. Condo corporations have an obligation to have insurance, and we need to make sure that that is reasonably affordable. So, preventing these types of water losses and insurance claims, obviously there's going to be some upfront cost. And when I talk to condo corporations about these particular issues, money is often an important barrier to talk about because we've got to overcome the challenge of affording that initial investment into the risk management. So, there's two common approaches. A condo corporation could levy a special assessment to pay for those costs. The corporation could also consider borrowing. A third option, which I don't address on the slide here, is also that a condo corporation could budget some contingency or special savings towards a risk mitigation program. That would not allow you to do it right away, but it is a way that you can build the funds over time in order to make it possible for your condo corporation. Now, borrowing from a firm like CLG, where I work, can be really advantageous for a condo corporation. It really can help to spread the costs over time, avoid owner hardship and cash flow disruptions as a result of implementing a risk mitigation solution. We can amortize the financing product with the useful life cycle of the components that are put in to help you with your water risk mitigation. And then as well, importantly too, we can use a loan as part of the long-term return on investment calculations. Having a good return on investment calculation or a good financial plan is an important part of the borrowing process because we do need to have some owner involvement if a condo corporation is in fact moving towards that route to borrow to put in a risk management solution. On the next slide, please, Erin. So in Ontario, condo corporations do require a borrowing bylaw in order to borrow funds. Now, when we talk about leak prevention or risk mitigation investments, some of these might have a very small upfront investment into the program. So it is possible, specifically for this type of use, a condo corporation might already have an existing borrowing bylaw or borrowing provision in their general operating bylaw that would allow them to borrow enough money to make this upfront investment. So that's a good thing to check. It can really minimize the administrative burden of putting a loan in place for something like we're talking about today. If you do not have an existing borrowing bylaw to support you, approval for a borrowing bylaw is a simple majority of all of the owners in the condo corporation. And that can seem like a real barrier, right? Getting the participation. So to be successful in doing that, it's really important that you use clear, transparent communication strategies, that you give the owners as much information as possible about why you're looking into this and what the result will be in order to have the most success. So you'll want to include things like what is the return on investment? What is the impact to the corporation's financial position if you do nothing, right? Because sometimes nothing really isn't an option. And then as well, it's really important to address what the impact will be on the condo fees so that owners have the information that they need to make the decision to vote in favor of a borrowing bylaw if one is in fact required for this upfront investment. And next slide, please, Erin. So in the messaging to the owners, what we want to do, first of all, is show the financial case for prevention. That's sort of what I talked about just a moment ago. We also want to make sure that we're demonstrating specifically how the borrowing protects the corporation, the owners themselves, and then also protects our future insurability. So sometimes you might want to have the insurance broker participate in developing the messaging if you are trying to pass a bylaw for this purpose. And really what we need to do is to try to position the project as an overall risk reduction investment. It's not a discretionary upgrade. It is something that is important to protect the future financial success of the condo corporation. So I just have one last point to make here, and that is that when prevention is financed thoughtfully, it's often cheaper than continuing to operate reactively. It is extremely important in the condominium context that we try always to look forward to create good, solid operational plans for our condominium clients. If we allow condos to simply hemorrhage money as a result of unanticipated losses, we are doing our condominium corporation or our client, if you're a condominium manager, a disservice from a financial perspective. So with that said, I'll turn it back to Erin and we'll continue on with our program for today.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lindsay. Let's look at the next area of concern. Why most often risk is predictable. Why we claim that it's not random. You've joined this webinar because you've seen water problems before. It's clear from the chat. You have experience with this. It follows patterns. Insurance companies vary, but all acknowledge that water is the biggest driver of property damage in high volume facilities, just like condos. Now, usually the claim data shows that, let's go back to the last slide, it's more than 70% of condo claims come from water-related losses. And that's more than fire. That's more than fire and theft combined. Now, this isn't news to you. Again, you have experience with water. You've seen emergencies with water and the damage that, starts in one unit and then it trickles down and causes issues throughout successive units. And it's common to see damages in the millions. You know what water can do to a high volume facility. But water behaves consistently even before the emergency. Both in time and then location. So we'll talk about 3 common failure points where we commonly see water being an issue, especially in a condominium. So construction damage, the unit appliance failure, and plumbing riser corrosion. Construction failures with construction budgets being tight and timelines being tight. Corners can be cut sometimes. Plumbing very commonly suffers. And that might mean low quality pipe material is chosen. Or there's damage during the construction process. There's joint failures. There's inadequate insulation or poorly placed insulation and then freezing and therefore burst pipes. And often these are pretty major damages that can do a whole lot of damage before anyone even knows what's happening because they're closed up in walls. The second common area we see water failure points is in unit appliances. So that's in unit, that's individual condominium unit owners. So toilet supply lines, shut-off valves, these often fail because supply hoses angle the stop valves, they degrade over time. And it's very rare to find a condominium owner with enough proactiveness that they'll regularly change these. Washing machine hoses and connections. Usually these fittings are under high pressure, they degrade over time, and the machines are exposed to constant vibrations. And then we're pulling them out, pushing them back in, maybe a little bit too far, too hard. Dishwashers and sinks, we see that happening. These are often slow leaks, and because they're hidden, they're inside a cabinet or they're underneath a countertop, they go undetected for a long time. And then, of course, we have human error within these units. And then finally, we come to vertical plumbing risers. Now, um, there are many plumbing material that's used. Copper is a great material for plumbing infrastructure at around the 25 to 30-year mark, though copper can and will begin to corrode to the point of pinhole leaks. Other materials will also age and degrade, as do all materials. And as a building survives season after season of movement and settling and movement, um, mechanical stress can do a lot of damage to an infrastructure. So what all of this tells us is that leaks will happen. We know leaks will happen. But, and this is the best part of it, we often know where, and that is our advantage. So you take precautions by maintaining insurance, having good plumbers ready to go in your roster, ready to help. And you do your best to educate owners on due diligence, making sure they're not they're maintaining their home. But no matter how good our response is to damage, it won't be as good as preventative measures. So, for instance, let's just take an example, an imaginary scenario. We're going to choose a really ideal scenario. So, your building is around 28 years old, and you are just doing a walkthrough, and at the bottom of a riser in a condominium, you see some water. Now, it's not much, and it's great. You were fast. Maybe it sprung a pinhole leak last night. This is a great scenario because you've caught it. So you call the professionals, do a whole investigation. Within a few days, you make sure there's no damage. The pinhole leak is fixed. Now that's an ideal scenario. You know that you would feel pretty lucky if that was you and you caught that. But what if it could be that ideal and even more every time? What if that leak could have been caught in seconds instead of hours or days? What if at detection of a leak, that specific water supply was automatically shut off? Or what if you could prevent the corrosion from happening in the first place? So what we see and what we can see on the slide is that there's a marked response gap between the leak detection, response, and therefore fix process. And we're ignoring the advantage that we have of being able to predict where water will cause damage. And then it becomes a little crazy because you fix one and then it becomes like a whack-a-mole situation and you're just waiting for the next emergency to happen. So instead, use your advantage to be proactive and to be preventative and not just responsive. So now that we have the chat open, we'd love to see where you have seen leaks. Let's see some action there. Where do leaks start most often in your building? We'd love to get your feedback on that. Is it starting in kitchens? Where is it starting? You have bathrooms, mechanical rooms. Oh, high tech. All right, very nice. Any HVAC condensation? Roof leaks, mechanical room. Okay. Yeah, they are falling under familiar ones. Kitchen drain. Okay. Wow, a new building. Oh, that's a shame. Sorry to hear that. Well, we know what's happening. We know leaks are happening. So let's shift from just that these symptoms happen to systems. So we'll go to Dwayne Pierce with integrity risk reduction. Dwayne, can you show us what operational prevention looks like?
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. So I'm Dwayne from Integrity Risk Reduction, and our company implements strategies for buildings to reduce their risk. So our goal is to put in the best system to talk to condo owners and condo corporations on what is their risk reduction strategy, working along with their mechanical contractors to create a system that uh, keeps their building safe and helps them reduce their liability exposure. So we know that our condo or our home is a quite a large investment, and the reason that when I talk to most customers is that they want to protect the equity of their building. So speaking to Lindsay's point, they're very proactive in wanting to protect their investment. So when we implement a risk reduction strategy, we want to look at their budget, what they want to protect, and the level of protection that they want. So we go through, audit the building, and work along with them to find that solution with sensors, oversight, monitoring, and alerts and automatic shutdown of the building. So if you look at a building that has no systems in place from an insurance point of view, from an investment point of view, if you have zero risk reduction in your building, then an insurer would look at you as having no protection at all. So once we start to implement these systems, your building becomes a more valuable proposition in the insurance. And if you can get your risk down by 80 or 90%, then that differentiates you to the buildings around, and then inherently your home will be more valuable. So you have an equity benefit as well as a liability risk reduction. So you actually have money coming back into the building by implementing these systems instead of going out. So I'll go through some successes that we've had. So one of the systems that we deploy, this is some of the data. It's a little bit hard to read on the slide, but we deployed a building in Vancouver, which I'll touch on next, that they wanted a flexible deployment option. So, and they wanted it to meet Chubb Insurance's requirement. Chubb has the highest requirement with a flow sensor, which is in pipe, floor sensors, automatic shutoff, and monitoring oversight by either the concierge, the building manager, or the condo members. So that was our goal to reach that level of risk reduction for that building. And they're able to have full control of their building. They can action a leak in the building. And typically it's 180 condos. So typically with any of those systems, they may have 1 to 2 shutdowns per day. So I hear it a lot that people say that they do not have leaks in their building. And we have the data to show from the buildings that we've done that that's just not the case. You have incidents which lead to a near miss, which leads to a fatality or a leak event that goes into claim. So we have the data that covers that. So have the next slide, please, Aaron. So this is Verona. It's 180 condos, and they were in trouble with their insurance. Very well maintained, very, very proactive condo corporation. But they had a couple of unfortunate events in their building, and their insurance went up to 500,000 deductible. They were able to get that back to 250,000, and they were still in a lot of trouble. Their premium went to 330,000 per year. And then that forced each individual owner to go and get a separate policy for $1,000 a year to cover the 250,000 deductible. So after putting in the system, they were able to negotiate in 2025 and reduce their deductible down to from 250,000 back to 75,000. They were able to save their premium for the year down 80,000, and all the owners were able to go and get their own individual policies removed. So that saved everybody $1,000 per year as well. So for 180 owners, that was a great result. Then they wanted to implement moving out of the condo where they have the automatic shut off, the floor sensors, and the inflow sensor, which meets the Chubb requirement, all of the owners were able to go and get an 8% personal policy discount, as well as the building getting a 10% building policy discount. So people like to benefit personally. So for the condo corporation putting this in for the building, it also had a personal benefit as well. So once that's implemented, it's a very easy to use system. We're very cognizant of we don't want the system interfering with people's day-to-day lives. We don't want it to be a bother. And the system's been in for 2 years, over 2 years, and we don't have any complaints from any of the condo owners. They're very happy with the system, and it's simple, but it's extremely effective at covering in-pipe leaks, floor leaks, shutting down the homes. If people go away on holidays, they can easily turn off the home, and that's the best scenario to keep the home turned off while they're away. So now they came to the 2026 renewal. They had a great result this year. They were able to get their deductible down to 50,000, and now their new premium for the year is 163,000. So they went from 330 to 252, and now they're at 163 in the matter of 2.5 years. So they have a great insurance benefit. And now they've reinstated their equity because people were hesitant to buy into the building because of the insurance problems. But now that value's been restored and actually increased compared to their neighbors because it's a very well managed building, and that leak risk has been suppressed. So they're now moving ahead with putting in leak shield to protect their from pinhole pipes. And they also implemented a riser shutdown system so that any of the condo members on the board or the building manager can shut down the whole building in 30 seconds. So I actually presented to Chubb in New Jersey back in April last year and asked them, have they seen a building with this level of risk reduction? And they hadn't seen that. But they love it because basically insurance companies want you to pay the premium, but they don't want to pay for claims. So the more negotiating power you have, the more attractive your building will be, and the more savings you will have. So it was an excellent result for their building. So I'll turn it back to Aaron.
Great. Thanks, Dwayne. Yeah, it's definitely powerful information. Thank you. So next is the chronic driver of repeated losses, pinhole leaks and corrosion. Ader, can you take us through that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Aaron. So on this part, we're going to focus on this very common type of leak that occurs in a building, a pinhole leak from your domestic water system. So if you're registered for this webinar and you're here, this image is probably something you're familiar with, right? A leak that occurs at any point during the day or night, probably at 4 a.m. It occurs anywhere in the building. It's a result of a pinhole leak. And this leak causes all kinds of damage. So first of all, property damage, of course. You can see it's raining down on the occupant there. So it damages drywall, wall finishes, floor finishes, furniture, all kinds of property damage. In larger instances, this can even result in an insurance claim. The residents themselves are unhappy because now this building problem has been a huge inconvenience to them. Maybe their own personal belongings are damaged. And of course, as was mentioned earlier in Lindsay's part, this is an unplanned expense. So this is something that isn't necessarily budgeted for. So now your budget takes a hit. So this definitely sounds like a problem. Why do we say the leak is not the problem? It's because it's really just a symptom of the true problem, which is a much larger issue. This pinhole leak event feels random, right? If you've experienced them, it may feel very random. When we go to visit buildings that have chronic pinhole leak issues, we often ask, how often do you have pinhole leaks? And do you know what the most common response is? It's unpredictable, right? You get 1 this month, you get 5 next month, then nothing for 6 months, and then you get one another month. So how do you budget around that? You can't plan for that kind of randomness. But really, is it random? Um, this type of problem begins because of corrosion. And this corrosion is systemic. It's something that starts the first day that water flows through your pipes in your building. So if you see a pinhole in one location, that's not the only spot that has weakened in your system. It's happening everywhere. That's just the final stage. So if you see one pinhole leak, there are others that are not far behind. But as we'll talk about, there is hope. There is once we understand the problem, then we can predict it, we can prevent it, and we can manage it. So let's start to understand the problem first on this slide here. So for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to talk about metallic pipes. So I know Kitech was mentioned. Some of you may have plastic pipes in your building. Degradation does happen in plastic pipes, but in a different way. Unfortunately, with plastic pipes, they are not able to be preserved. So once they fail, they have to be replaced. So that's why sometimes we feel plastic pipes are cheaper. It's a cheaper way. It really isn't, because long term, you're replacing all of them. So for the purposes of this discussion, we'll talk about pinhole leaks that occur in metallic pipe systems. So inside every one of these domestic water pipe systems that are metallic, typically they're copper, but sometimes you'll see galvanized or other metals. But metal loss is occurring, right? And it happens for a couple of different ways. And so we'll talk briefly about how this happens. There's first of all, there's the mechanical action. So there's water that just erodes the pipe wall. So that's high flow areas, high turbulent areas. That's why often around elbows, you'll see a leak happen there. It's a fairly well-known issue. But there's another reason too, and that's sort of more of the chemistry side of things. Let's talk about that. So water chemistry, including dissolved oxygen in the water, pH, chlorine, all of these things contribute to pipe corrosion. Dissolved oxygen is very attractive to electrons. So on your pipe wall, the atoms that make up your pipe wall, the copper itself, are very attracted to dissolved oxygen. And so they will actually leave the atom of the pipe wall, leaving the remaining material unstable. Because it's unstable, it actually will leave the pipe wall as well, leaving your pipe wall now one atom thinner. So that thinning process occurs over and over and over and over again from the day the building was built until today. And that's why we say it's systemic, because it's happening everywhere in your building. It's a slow process, literally one atom at a time. But when you see pits from this corrosion, sorry, can you go back just one moment? Sorry. Thanks. When you see these pits happening, as you see in the bottom right corner, it's a result of the pipe getting thinner and thinner until a breakthrough event occurs. So what we're seeing as a leak in the bottom left is really just the final step of this process. So when you are seeing this happen, and it happens more than once, you're seeing two or three, now we're not talking about individual repairs. We're talking about an infrastructure problem. Your entire building's piping system is at a point where something needs to be done. So now, next slide, please. Thank you. So can we just repair it as we go and just wait until we get a leak, repair that one, wait until the next one comes? That's always an option, but it is the most expensive option. If you've ever had to call a plumber in the middle of the night and paid the overtime fees, you'll know why it's the most expensive option. It's very expensive. Not only the plumbing repair itself, but then you've got all of the property damage to repair, the paint, drywall, dry down, mold remediation, all of that. It is hemorrhaging money. The path, though, that this is going to follow is very predictable. So corrosion is going to happen. We know that that's a given. That's going to lead to the occasional leak. That's going to lead to more frequent leaks, and that's going to lead to a pipe replacement project down the road. So that path it feels inevitable. That end result of a pipe replacement project is huge, right? It's an expensive, disruptive, time-consuming, and incomplete process. And we say that because expensive, number one, it can be in the millions if depending on the size of your building. Copper pipe just went up by 30% last month. So what was expensive last month is more expensive this month, and it will be continue to go that way. Disruptive because in order to access those pipes to replace them, drywall is removed, cabinetry is removed. It's all very disruptive, time consuming. These projects last from months to sometimes even years, depending on the size, but also incomplete. So after you've gone through all of that process to replace your pipes and now you've got brand new pipes, take a look at your capital reserve line item for pipe replacement. Uh, Most of the time, it will not say replace all of the domestic water pipe. It will say something like replace hot water risers in this year, replace cold water mains in this year, replace recirculation mains this year. So after doing all of that, you still haven't addressed some of the piping in the building, which is the branch piping into each unit, some of the branches off of the mains. Depending on how far they go, quite a bit of piping has still not been replaced and is the same piping as was there when the building was built. So corrosion is going to happen. It's not optional. Your decision now is, do we manage it early or do we pay for it later? So now let's take a look at the next slide, please. So how can we manage it early? This is a practical and cost-effective solution is to control the corrosion before it happens. So a good corrosion control system is a great solution here. These systems introduce a food grade mineral into your water supply. So you can see in the top left we have an example of a corrosion control system that our company installs, Leak Shield. It injects a food grade mineral, sodium silicate, and this mineral is naturally attracted to corroding metal. So we have that illustration on the bottom there. Because it's attracted to the corroding metal, it creates a protective microscopic ceramic film on the inside of the piping system. This film isolates the metal pipe from the corrosive conditions in the water. So now they're completely separated and the water can't act on the metal pipe any further. In the past, there have been different solutions to this problem of pinhole leaks. So you might be familiar with epoxy coating or some of the other solutions that have been tried in the past. And one big concern was if we're creating a film on the inside, is that going to continue to block up my pipe, like build a layer that's so thick that heat transfer is now a problem, or valves don't work anymore, or flow is becoming a problem. With this solution, that's not an issue because it is a self-limiting film. So the silicate requires the corroding metal in order to create that film. As soon as there is no more corroding metal, it just can't build on itself. It's physically impossible. So it's self-limiting. We even did a microscope image of the film after being in place for many months, I think over a year. And that's that image at the bottom. Sort of looks like a canyon or a slice of cake. The measurement of the film thickness is 20 microns. So that's about the thickness of a strand of silk. So self-limiting is a big deal there. Some of the advantages of going this route compared to pipe replacement is everything is done in the mechanical room. So there's no intrusion into the units, into the residence space. The only interruption is a few hours of a water shutdown one day. And other than that, there's no interruption into the residence. It's also predictable. So now instead of having these unpredictable costs of pipe repairs as they happen, and getting more and more frequent, culminating in a pipe replacement project, which is huge. Now you have just an ongoing stable cost that you can predict, you can manage, and you can budget. Just like with any service, you want to make sure that the corrosion control program you choose is approved. It's an NSF approved program, environmentally friendly. So at Leak Shield, we use a sodium silicate, which is a phosphate-free program, and also that it has a proven track record. So now you have an option. Manage corrosion now versus paying for its results later. And as stewards of your building, we encourage you to certainly think long term. You can manage predictable risks like corrosion in domestic water systems before they become huge capital costs. So I'll hand it back to Aaron now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ader. We appreciate that. So let's bring, we've talked about a lot. Let's bring it all together into a single BoardSafe decision playbook now. So with all of this, we should be able to take away a few things: that water loss is often predictable, and that with deliberate action, the vast majority can be prevented. But by accepting the invitation to be here, you've shown that the idea, the mentality, if it's not broke, don't fix it, that mentality, it isn't good enough for you and your buildings. You're holding to a higher standard. So how do we meet those standards? Well, let's look at the screen. We'll use this model to guide board decisions, or to guide the decision makers in your facility. So first, think critically to identify water loss issues and triggers. So with a decisive mind, ask as a team. Next time you have an agenda as a condominium board, or even your team in a property management company, we have had water loss damage claims in the last 5 years. So we ask the question, of those, have any been related to poor construction or installation of plumbing infrastructure? Are our insurance premiums rising? Do we understand why? Is it because of water? Is it because of how many leaks? Is my building starting to age, especially over the 25 to 30 year mark? What are the pipes made of? What are the limitations of those specific kinds of materials like Ada was talking about? So let's think critically and honestly. Second, quantify the risk. So where is water loss happening? How much water are you actually losing? Do you know? Do you have a way of finding that out? Does your building have the potential to lose more? When there is a leak, how fast can it be responded to? Getting those kinds of numbers can be very useful for you. So think critically, then quantify. Next, choose leak intervention systems. So pair the information that you now have, all the numbers that you have, with a strategy. And that might take different forms, but it should include a systems solution like Dwayne was talking about, and a preventative solution, not just reactive. So some solutions that we recommend and that we've used before are flow detection and flow sensors, or leak sensors, automatic shutoffs, corrosion treatment, like Ader was talking about, and of course, as always, updated SOPs, your standard operating procedures. And there's no need for this to be super labor intensive, because you all have enough on your plate handling the needs of a building, or many buildings in the case of a property manager. So always guide your decisions on getting something that is as maintenance free as possible, an automated systems solution. So now you think critically, you've quantified, now you've chosen something. Now funding. You have a funding path consideration. So this goes back to what Lindsay was talking about. Once you've chosen your intervention, take a really good, clear, thorough look at your finances. Is your reserve fund ready for this specific investment? Or will a loan be a better option? Or could other options be available? Like, could interventions be introduced into the building in phases, one bit at a time? Often a financial advisor, like for instance, Condominium Lending Group, can help with decisions like that, clearing up things, or a risk mitigation company can break down the ROI for you. But just take an honest look at how this investment will affect things, not just now, but 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and how it can be balanced with other building upgrades and maintenance. And also, as was mentioned, what discount impact this will have on your insurance premiums. So we saw a really good case study with Dwayne's section. So we think critically, quantify, we've chosen something, and now we have the funding in place. Now it comes time to implement and monitor the system that we've chosen. So when a system is in place, make sure that everyone understands how to use it. The staff, your concierge, your manager, property management is trained on your monitoring platform. Take the time to get this really customized to your building, so that once it's done, it can protect you properly. It can do what you've invested it to be. It can be an effective investment. And really, boards that that follow this framework are demonstrating transparent, reasonable governance, and that'll make better use of reserve funds and will retain more value, not only for individual condominium owners, but also for the building itself. So just before we conclude, we know that there's been some questions. We're going to move into a guided Q&A. I'll just stop sharing here and you can see all the panelists and myself here. And maybe we can take a look. If you have any questions, if you could put them into the Q&A box, and then hopefully we can field some of those questions using our panelists here. And then if we have time at the end, we're going to do some lightning scenarios. What would you do? Type things. So we have a question. Maybe we can direct this to Ader. We have a question. Can the hardness or softness of water affect wear rates in pipes? You answered that, but maybe you can share that with all of us.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it certainly can. Soft water can be sort of starved of minerals, so it can be looking for minerals, which it will take from the pipe wall. Increases in the ionic strength will increase the solution conductivity, and that can increase the corrosion rate as well. So short answer, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ader. We have a question. How do we build support for prevention projects? Lindsay, do you mind weighing in on that one? How can we build support for prevention projects?
Sure, of course. So, I mean, in my experience, one key thing the owners care about is the money. You know, they want to live in a building that looks good, and they also want to live in a building that's affordable. And so if you lead with the financial impacts, right? Why do we need to do this financially? What is the path we're moving towards if we don't do it financially? And then what is the specific impact to their condo fees? This really helps the owners to wrap their head around the importance and also sort of not worry so much about the potential impact of the costs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, we have another question. Maybe Dwayne. I think this is one for Dwayne. Dwayne, I've already fixed the leak in my building. No issue. Why should I invest further after a major leak was already repaired? I've repaired the issue. Why do I need further investment?
Because you're relying, you have no risk reduction. In any building, leaks are going to keep reoccurring. And that's why I get back to the data. So in the case of Verona, for 170 condos, there's over 1,600 sensors in the condo. We did another building, King's Landing. It has 3,000 sensors in 158 condos with automatic shutdown. So the data that we're getting is, like I said, those small events that you don't see, or those incidences, you only see the claims data. Now we're seeing the micro data. So you may have fixed that leak event, but there's leaks happening all through your building that you have no idea that are happening. And until it actually leaves the condo owner's home, because typically most leaks are small leaks that cause a lot of damage. The big gushing leak is not the common leak. So yeah, if you're following up and repairing, or you think that your building doesn't leak, the data in the 4 buildings that we have says totally otherwise.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Yeah, we have a question here. Can you manage every unit, owner, or tenant, their personal maintenance of appliances, etc.? Yeah, so how maybe Dwayne, we'll keep with you for a second. how widespread can we go when it comes to sensors for monitoring? Can we monitor everything in a building unit?
Yeah, it depends. Well, again, it gets back to your strategy. So every building is different. And so you have to look at your strategy of what it is that you want to provide protection from. I saw one comment there about a kitchen drain.
Mm.
Well, we have sensors under the kitchens, and while you can't shut down a condo kitchen drain, you get that early warning that something's happening, and so someone's responding. You want someone to take action. Whereas if there's no sensors, there's no action until that drain overflow is in the neighbor or the neighbor below them. That's typically what happens too. So everyone's at work and it's got to get to somebody that actually sees the leak. It could go 2, 3 floors before somebody's home that says, hey, there's something going on upstairs. Whereas we take out that, we know exactly where it's happening. The concierge or the building manager can see it. And typically, 90% of the cases, the residences take care of the issue themselves. The building manager isn't overworked. If anything, he can see the dashboard and he can check in with a simple text message. And most of the times, it's being taken care of. So you would think that the building manager would have more work. He actually has less work. And then the condo board members have less work volunteering because they're not supervising these issues in the building. So it actually saves a lot of headaches in the building, and you can catch leaks that otherwise wouldn't be caught. But again, it comes down to the strategy. What is your strategy? You have to have one, and you have to think it through.
Yeah, thanks for that. We have to establish a system and very clear standard operating procedures. Yeah, great. Thanks. So unfortunately, we're running a little bit short on time. But if we could leave you with anything as an audience, we'll get this figured out here. We have three. So as we close, like this has been an educational session talking about risk mitigation as a principle and practically how we can fund it. So three optional no obligation resources we're going to make available if you wanted to keep up the momentum. If you feel, okay, this is something I need to implement in my building or with my team. So we'd like to leave these three options that are available to you. Yeah, good. Yeah, this is coming up on the screen. Good. So we have three building risk snapshot. So that's a proper look at where the failure points are for your building because every building is unique. So how long you can expect your specific infrastructure to last without any major issues, and what those issues will look like when they start to occur, and then the exact prevention recommendations that we would be recommended for your building or your portfolio. Second would be a no obligation board presentation. Now this we spoke in generalities in general terms today. Couple of case studies, but this can be more customized to your specific needs. And now we can talk proper nuts and bolts. We can help you with the 5-step process that we mentioned there in eliminating your building leak risk. And then also a no obligation financing review. So how do we fund prevention without a large assessment? So we need this, but all we have is this. How do we handle this financially? So all these three are designed to help you and your boards to have the mindset to move forward confidently. So as we sign off, we'd like to say a special thank you to Lindsay and to Dwayne and to Ader, and a special thanks to everyone who joined this afternoon. If we'll be passing on this information that we've gone over here that you can pass on to your boards, teams. If you would like some more information, please reach out, take a screenshot of what you see here, and we'll follow up with that contact information later on too. But please reach out. We appreciate your time and especially your commitment to a proactive, responsible governance. And we wish you a good day.